If you've never been in your attic, you might want to go up there soon. I'll tell you why. Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for tuning back in. It's Attic Find Friday, the best day of the week. And hopefully, I'm putting this out on Friday. It is Friday, but I'm not 100% sure I'll be able to actually post this. So you might be watching this on Saturday. So I do Attic Finds every Friday. I'm coming up on a year of Attic Find Fridays. If you're new here, make sure you're subscribed. All kinds of sports card content. This one is another T206 find. I love these T206s, not because of the values, because this one doesn't have massive values, but just because of the stories. And that's my favorite part of Attic Find Fridays. This one is, the story's a little bit convoluted, so I'm hoping I'm going to get it right. I got details from both Sports Collectors Digest and Sports Collectors Daily on this. So a young man moved into his house with his parents in 1912. He was 12 years old. And his father was a smoker, and he would give his son, the 12-year-old, cards from his packs, his cigarette packs. And that son would then apparently glue the cards onto a piece of paper, and then eventually he framed the paper as a display. And remember, this is in the 19-teens, before there were top loaders or penny sleeves or grading companies. And so he had this awesome display in that he had made. Fast forward to 1995, and his grandson and his grandson's wife had just bought the house, the family house, and they were going through the attic. Now, this attic is not easy to get to. Nobody had been up there for decades. It took, at a minimum, an 8-foot ladder, and the 8-foot ladder really only got you close. So you needed a pretty big ladder. And he goes up there with his wife, and they're kind of looking around, and they found these old, small picture frames. And he picked them up and dusted them off. The house was heated with coal, and coal dust had gotten into the attic. And so he dusted them off. The glass, they were sitting glass up, dusted them off, and realized that they were old baseball cards. And he thought, wow, these might be worth something. He brought his father over. His father had lived next door since 1954, so about 40-something years. His father had never been in the attic of this house, which had been his parents' house. And his father had never seen these baseball cards before, so he was surprised to find that all these cards were in the attic. And there were ultimately, let me look here, 432 T206s up there. There's some more too, we'll get to that. But they found that they were very lucky that the frames were glass up, because they could easily wipe away the dust on all of them. If they had been wood up, because the backing of it was made of wood, the wood would have gotten wet, and it would have gotten through, soaked through, and destroyed the cards. So all those years, they got very, very lucky. So he pulled the cards out, he brought them to some event, showed them off a little bit in 1995, but then brought them back home and stored them in his basement for the next 22 years. In 2017, he decided it was time. He and his wife wanted to do something with the cards. They didn't have kids. They wanted a collector to have these cards, or multiple collectors, people who could enjoy them instead of just sitting in their basement. So the gentleman who found them in his attic put them in between plastic sheets, put them in a briefcase, and walked into a Huggins and Scott shop in Maryland, which is where he was from, because he had a friend or a contact who had consigned some cards the year before and had a really good experience through Huggins and Scott. And so he showed them the cards, and they were really impressed, obviously. They managed to get them out from the case, or they were already out of the case, but when they got them out of the case, they were in pretty darn good shape. And so they sent some of them off to get graded, and they came back. So here are the grades of the big ones. Eddie Collins got a 7. 13 of them got a PSA 7 or higher, so they were among the highest graded in existence. And these were the PSA. Eddie Collins got a 7. That one sold for $2,000. Ty Cobb Green Portrait got a PSA 4.5. That one sold for $10,800. They also had the Bat on Shoulder Cobb. That got a PSA 5, sold for $5,000. Most of these had Sweet Cap or Piedmont backs. There were also a bunch of T3 Turkey Reds, which all graded with SGC, or most of them graded with SGC instead of PSA. There were also a bunch of T204 Ramleys, 10 of them. Those sold for about $4,000 total, maybe $4,000 to $5,000. A bunch of non-sports early 20th century cards. There was 412 of the T206s went ungraded in one lot through Huggins and Scott, sold for just under $10,000. There was a lot of 4 PSA 4s, including 2 John McGraws, a Wee Willie Keeler, and a Tris Speaker, sold for $5,000. PSA is down right now. You may be aware it has been for a couple days, which makes it difficult to really see pop reports and auction prices. But I did find that the last PSA 4, the last 4.5 of the Green Portrait Cobb sold in 2019. So I didn't want to use that as a comp. But the last 4, remember these sold in 2015. So I want to know, what might this $10,000 Cobb be worth today? The last 4 sold a couple months ago for $18,000. The last 5 sold a couple months ago for $44,000. So what might a 4.4 sell for? $25,000? $30? $30,000? I'd buy it for $30. So yeah, it's really interesting to see, and we know this, how much prices have gone up, especially for vintage. When you're looking at more modern, prices are largely where they were before for guys who have already proven themselves, sometimes even down in some cases. But yeah, I mean, these are long since deceased players, and their values have gone way up, doubled, tripled in the course of 8 years. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. And even the father, who lived next door and had lived next door for 40 years, was a huge baseball fan. He recognized some of the players on the cards. He was a huge baseball fan growing up and had no idea these cards were in the attic. Pretty neat. Obviously, I love these things, these stories. So awesome Attic Find Friday. I love the display. I just picture this kid putting together this display, just like I did as a kid. Obviously a little different, but I spent a lot of time on my bedroom floor as a kid, just organizing my cards and playing, writing down the ones I was missing, putting them in order, putting them in binders. So I just imagine this kid 80 years before that doing kind of the same things with his T206s. His father smoking cigarettes and handing him cards. Probably really treasured those, and it shows in the way he took care of them. Really fun, really cool stuff. Probably no video tomorrow, guys. Make sure you're subscribed. Sunday, I'm going to be covering all of the things Topps did poorly this week, all the big mess-ups that Topps had this week. You've probably seen some of them, if not all of them. So I'm looking forward to that, and yeah, a lot more cool stuff coming out in the next couple weeks. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great weekend.